Yo, 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 it's your boys Luap and Starmeister, aka the Pichu Bros, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokemon Chronicles review series. Today we'll be reviewing episode 15, putting the air back in Aerodactyl. It originally aired on March 16, 2004 in Japan, and on August 17, 2006 in the US. So with all that out of the way, let's get started with the recap. This episode begins with Professor Oak contemplating what souvenir to buy for Ash's mom. Yeah, they couldn't even say her name. I guess she deserves a souvenir after. In an excellent nod to continuity, Gary is researching on an island and Professor Oak and Tracey are going to the island. They're going because Gary had told them that there's something that he wanted to show them urgently. While waiting at the docks, a man named Jared comes to pick them up on a speedboat and transports them to the island that Gary is at. As they take off, we get a look at Cassidy and Butcher as they stare at the boat, saying that they are probably going to where Professor Nama asked them to go and take something. On the way to the island, Tracey and Oak spot a bunch of Sea King, and Tracey does a quick sketch. In a dub-only edit, Oak mentions that he used to own a Sea King, but again, this isn't mentioned in the Japanese version. After arriving at the island, Professor Oak, Tracey, and Jared walk towards the lab when suddenly an Aerodactyl appears in front of them. As soon as the Aerodactyl flies away, we see Gary running towards the Aerodactyl, complaining that it got away again. After a quick reunion with his grandpa, everyone heads back to the lab together. We also get shown that Brad and Cassidy have also arrived on the island. Gary tells Professor Oak that he found the old Amber back when he was on his journey, and that's how they managed to revive Aerodactyl. The problem is that when it got revived, it got scared and destroyed everything and ran away. Crystal, who's the little sister of the unimportant lead scientist Dora, makes her appearance and she's a sassy little girl. However, it was her that found the Aerodactyl egg that was also ultimately used to revive the Aerodactyl. With Oak being worried that it could run away and cause havoc in other places, he warns that they need to go find it and fast. Crystal then uses her Pokepowers around the islands to be on the lookout for said Aerodactyl. When scouting for the Aerodactyl, Blip and Cassidy end up facing it head first before being gusted away. After all of this trouble, Gary begins doubting himself, and we get a whole scene of Oak and Tracey comforting Gary and telling him that this is just a new journey of being a researcher and it's just only begun. And they also mention that what happens along the journey is ultimately more important than the destination itself.
A Farfetch'd then informs the trio that it spotted Aerodactyl, and upon following the bird, they end up on the only mountain on the entire island. They spot a sleeping Aerodactyl and decide to sneak up on it. And Crystal falls, alerting the Aerodactyl. It flies away, but Tracey feels his inner Ash Ketchum and hangs on to Aerodactyl as it flies away. After getting closer to the ground, Tracey dead. Well, no, he's fine, but Aerodactyl gets captured by a net, and it was none other than Bucks and Cassidy. They quickly get defeated by Gary's Umbreon and Crystal's Ivysaur, who basically just used Tackle and Quick Attacks to win, before blasting him off with Solar Beam. As Team Rocket blasts off, we see that Aerodactyl uses Hyper Beam, and Team Rocket dead. Aerodactyl escapes, and Gary theorizes that maybe the new Aerodactyl is actually scared of humans, since it's brand new to the world. He thinks that if they can feed it, then they can gain its trust, so they go and make a plan to find its favorite food. Once finding out that it likes what looks like pear, they head to where Crystal has seen them before. Sure enough, Aerodactyl is munching away when Team Rocket appears and they successfully capture the Aerodactyl. This time, Gary sends out Dodrio, which easily handles the Team Rocket duo, and once again they get hyper beamed out of existence. In order to gain its trust, they fight it again eating the fruit, and this time Gary approaches the Pokémon and it finally trusts them after seeing all of the Pokémon surrounding him and Crystal vouching for the trainers. Now that it's all over, Dora offers Gary a full-time job there and Crystal is found with the Aerodactyl. Tracey gives Crystal a sketch of her Ivysaur and leaves alongside Professor Oak. And while they're riding the boat, the group of Lapras see them out, and they reflect on how good of a Pokemon researcher Gary has become. That's the end of the episode, and now for our ratings and reviews.
This episode does what it always does and gives us more elder shipping moments right away. We even get a guest appearance by Harrison, my beloved. Well, not really, but Jared's voice actor is also Harrison, so I'll take that as a cameo. This episode had a lot of fun moments from a lot of the same characters that we've loved seeing all throughout Chronicles, namely Binks, Cassidy, Tracey, and Oak. Butch...
It's Butch, not! Oh, that's what you said!
And Cassidy actually felt like proper antagonists in this one, unlike in A Day with Ducati. Heck, they appeared twice, but both times I felt like they were truly impactful. Tracey was an amazing big brother-like character to both Crystal and Gary. He even channeled his inner Ash Ketchum and took a ride with Aerodactyl. Professor Oak showed us that besides being Ash's mom really close friend, that he's also an excellent grandfather. The surprise pick of this episode was Crystal, who was really cool and played an amazing part of the episode, one of the better characters of the day if I'm being honest. On the other hand, her big sister, the lead scientist, spoke just 2 lines and her voice was completely annoying and honestly she's forgettable. Jared was also cool for what he was supposed to do, his character design was really awesome. The plot with Aerodactyl was really nice, and I felt that it was paced rather nicely, ending at the perfect time and not being dragged on too long. One bad thing about this episode was that the dialogue felt very generic and cookie cutter, especially when Oak was motivating Gary when he was having a bunch of self-doubt. My rating for this episode is a 7 out of 10. While it did deliver a lot with the characters, I felt that the dialogue was truly a weak point of this episode. At this point, the battles in Pokemon Chronicles are getting really stale, with 90% of them coming down to normal type attacks and grass Pokemon. A fun episode that I wouldn't mind watching again, and it's always nice to see Gary. This episode also does a really good job at bridging his appearance at the end of Johto and his appearance at the end of the Advanced Generation series.
So, first of all, I love that Harrison's voice actor is in this episode, and it's a cool change of pace listening to Tracey reciting the title card. I think this episode was good at developing Gary's character as an aspiring Pokemon researcher. It was nice seeing him doubting his goals and dreams, and even low-key regretting not continuing his journey as a Pokemon trainer. We can really see how he's changed as a person, which is especially evident when he excitedly asks how Ash has been doing. Professor Oak did his job pretty decently at inspiring Gary, showcasing his wisdom and giving us some insightful third-person points of view about many different things. Tracey was another character that I liked, and my favorite moment of him was when he pulled out an Ash Ketchum and recklessly hopped onto Aerodactyl without thinking twice. But my favorite character of this episode was definitely Lil Crystal. She was easily the MVP of this episode. She has all the wild Pokemon under her control and managed to blast Team Rocket off as a mere child. Speaking of, Butch and Cassidy never failed to make me smile. They weren't necessarily super important in this episode, but at least they helped in making Aerodactyl distrust humans. And yeah, I do think the ending was kinda low effort with Aerodactyl trusting them immediately after Gary gives it some fruit. Also, the 2 adult scientists were pretty much useless in this episode. I mean, Jared was cool, but Dora was super irrelevant and pretty annoying actually. Oh, and Solar Beam has been overused in Pokemon Chronicles recently, so I am not a big fan of that. Overall though, this episode had some enjoyable moments, but also a lot of boring moments. Or maybe I'm just not so much into prehistoric stuff?
Ancient prehistoric creatures are really cool, aren't they?
Like grandpas.
It's pretty average for me, so I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
So yeah, that was our review and recap for episode 15 of Pokemon Chronicles, putting the air back in Aerodactyl. If you enjoyed this video, then I highly suggest you subscribe to both of our channels. Links are found in the description below. For the next episode of this review series, that will come out next week on Starmeister's channel, so you're going to want to head over to his channel and check that out. Or if you want, you can click the playlist that we made and find all the episodes nearly there. Until next time, it's been your boys the Pichu Bros, and we're out. Peace.
Proceed to capture.
Cassidy.
And this!
It's fun!